Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. This case out of the University of Georgia, Laken Riley, it's sort of become a cause celeb in regards to, illegal immigration and the safety, campus safety and security. Here's this poor girl, a nursing student, beautiful person, doing all the right things in life. And then this person here you see on the screen, Jose Antonio Ibarra, an illegal alien from Venezuela who had been previously arrested in New York City and somehow made his way to Georgia. That didn't do a thing, getting arrested in New York City. Now, just to give a little history lesson to that, when I was on the NYPD and when Mike Geary was on the NYPD, when we arrested someone that was an illegal, we would notify ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and they would come after we had processed our prisoner, after he was arraigned, and they would go to the court and they would pick him up for deportation. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So outrageous things like this occur, where this beautiful nursing student loses her life. She's out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia. And there was evidence that Jose Ibarra had been stalking her, or at the very least, he had been reconning her, seeing that she was running every day and she would run by a path that was by his apartment complex where his illegal alien brother lived with him. So all of these facts came out. And when we talk about this horrible case and the fact that this poor woman, Laken Riley, lost her life over what's turned out to be a political football, And I always get not a kick out of it, but I just roll my eyes when I hear reporters say illegals do crime at statistically no higher or lower than, or little, as they say, lower than regular citizens. To me, that is the worst argument anyone could present, because if they do one crime is up 100% as per illegals, because they're not supposed to be here. All right. So when you raise that argument, it just absolutely annoys the shit out of me. And every single news reporter I've heard that presents these cases will say that, they don't do crime statistically any higher than American citizens. In fact, they do it at a lower rate. Statistics lie, but so do news reporters. So it's just this whole case. We covered it earlier on when this poor young woman lost her life. And it's so infuriating. Anyway, we're going to get into it today. So, folks, hold on to your seats. Hold on to your hats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Before we start the show, first, a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Joining me today, during the day, you guys must ask, what does this guy do with his life that he's always available? Anyway, joining me is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Mike, welcome.
Welcome, Billy. The answer to your question is I multitask. That's what I do.
Well, that's good. And I'm sure
Good to see you.
people are very, very happy that you're able to do that because people love you on this show. You know, Mike, there's so many different angles we could take to this, but we're both parents. You know, I believe you have 3 daughters. I have 2
Yes.
sons. When your kids go to a college campus, at the very least, you expect them to be safe, especially on the campus. On the campus. And when violence visits the campus from an outside source, you have so many questions. Why? Why did this happen? And violence comes from the outside. This was not only from the outside, this was from another country, happened to be from Venezuela. And Venezuela is getting a reputation, in our country at least, of delivering half their criminal population because they have Tren de Agua has taken over large parts of New York City, and it's a Venezuelan gang. Part of the problem with this is this guy who's been accused of Laken Riley's murder, Jose Antonio Ibarra. How do we know his criminal history in Venezuela? It was never checked. This guy could have a 10-page rap sheet, but yet we don't know because they don't do vetting to that level. And we as American citizens deserve that. We deserve people that are coming into this country to be vetted. And when they're not, situations like this occur. Laken Riley, innocent girl on her way to becoming a nurse. And just this case is absolutely infuriating. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, when you're a parent, you send your children off to college. And when they're residing on a college campus, you expect them to be safe. And we know statistically, college campuses are very safe places because, they're usually enclosed. There's, security and there's an atmosphere of learning and, there's not a lot of strangers coming in and out. You just have people who all kind of know each other from classes, from seeing them in the gymnasium or something like that. So it's a really close knit community, really tight knit in a way, and that's a wonderful thing. Even the biggest university, you make friends and you just maybe might have them for a number of years, and so that's the beauty of going to college in America. That this threat from Ibarra. Now we don't know what he did in Venezuela, but we certainly know what he did here. First, he committed one offense. He illegally entered in 2022. He was arrested in New York City. Okay. He left New York City, went to Georgia, and he went to Georgia. And what did he do? He was there for a certain period of time, and he was stalking people. And then he killed poor Laken Riley when she was jogging one day, and we think he was actually stalking her for a while. His apartment was within, I think it was just kind of like over the fence line from the area of the official edge of the college, and so therefore it's probably that this is not his first time in custody for something in terms of a violent assault. I would bet my paycheck that he has a rap sheet as long as my arm down in Venezuela for all kinds of weapons offenses and assaults. And he came here and he entered the country illegally, and we did nothing about it. And so the bottom line is what he did was he killed someone. And if he wasn't in this country, Laken Riley would still be alive.
Mike, this is disturbing because here's this young girl going for a jog, and this was not just a murder. This was going to be a sex offense.
Yes,
that was his motive. That was what his goal was. And when she fought for her life, she lost her life fighting for her life. So
right.
You have to think that a crime like this. And I worked 6.5 years in anti-crime in plain clothes. So I followed stalkers like this. I've been on the street. I've arrested in the act violent perpetrators like this. and I know his type, and that is what we owe people like him, is who the police should be protecting citizens from. And yet we failed here. And the first part of the failure, of course, was allowing him into the country at all, because he should have been allowed into the country. And when you did let him into the country, he was improperly vetted. He was never checked to the depth he should have been in his background. Now they let him in. He commits a crime, and he's not. That was in New York City. He's not deported. He shows up in Georgia. Now we have this ticking time bomb that we're unaware of because we didn't vet him coming across the border. We don't know who this guy is. So, as I say, it just infuriates me that this poor young lady here, who would have helped so many people in her life had she lived, and we have this dirtbag who would just bring misery on other human beings. And now the family of Laken Riley and the University of Georgia community has to sit by and wait as his trial commences. I'm going to play this from ABC News.
Man accused of killing 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley, whose death sparked a fierce national debate over the Biden administration's immigration policies after investigators revealed the accused is undocumented. He waived his right to a jury trial. Faith Abube is in Atlanta. Good morning, Faith.
Yeah, good morning to you, George. A jury selection for Jose Ibarra's murder trial was set to begin today, but that 11th hour decision now means only one person will get to decide whether he's innocent or guilty.
Jose Ibarra, the undocumented migrant charged in the brutal murder of a nursing student, in court Tuesday, opting for a judge alone to decide his fate rather than a jury trial.
Do you understand that I grant this request, it cannot be revoked by you going forward?
Authorities say he killed 22-year-old Laken Riley, who was out for a jog earlier this year on a trail at the University of Georgia. Her body found in a wooded area with visible injuries.
We lost one of the brightest lights that there's ever been.
Ibarra is facing 10 criminal counts, including murder, aggravated assault, and kidnapping. The 26-year-old suspect is from Venezuela. Federal authorities say months before Riley's murder, New York police arrested Ibarra for driving unregistered and uninsured with a child. But he was released before they could begin the process to deport him. The NYPD denies ever arresting the suspect.
He represents more than just the crime of murder of which he's being charged with. He represents a poor border policy. He represents immigration policies. And so because of that influence, the decisions that are going to be made going forward are much larger than any one homicide case usually is.
And that bench trial is scheduled to start in just 2 days. Ibarra's defense attorneys tried unsuccessfully not only to delay the start, but also to limit what evidence can be presented. Guys.
So, Mike, that to me is a surprise. And there's no way this knucklehead said, I'll take a judge trial. That had to be a recommendation from his attorneys. So for whatever reason, Mike, he decided to take a judge trial rather than a jury trial. And again, I said that's on the advice of his attorneys. There's no way he has the mental capacity to even think of this.
Yeah, Billy, I'm thinking that his attorneys are, reading the atmosphere in the community, and they're going to go to pick a jury. And I don't think he's going to get a jury that's going to be even partly sympathetic. I think the defense attorney probably is looking at this. He's facing like 9 to 10 charges. And I would imagine that the defense attorney would say to him, look, if you're found guilty, the jury is, if they find you guilty of one, they're going to find you guilty of all crimes. And that's it. You're gone. See ya. Goodbye. You're never going to see the light of day ever again. Forget about it. And I think the defense attorney, and I'm trying to think, as a defense attorney, if I'm trying to counsel him, I would say, look, we have a judge. He's going to be thinking a lot more technically about the law. He might find you guilty of one crime, but not another. Find you guilty of 2 crimes, but not 3 others. so that maybe, just maybe, somewhere down the line, you may get a parole hearing. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. And I think the defense attorney, that would be my mindset as a defense attorney, to counsel him by saying the judge might be a little bit less emotional, a little bit more fair, perhaps, and not get carried away by saying he's guilty of everything, right down the line, boom, first vote, we got him, let's get out of here. I think the judge would be a little bit more circumspect and maybe more analytical, and that would be his only hope. Who's to say what's going to happen? But I think that's the only salvation he may see someday in his life, is a parole board, and then perhaps deportation back to where he came from. That's why I'm thinking his attorney probably counsels him to do that.
You know, back when this occurred, this is how the New York Times described it. A 26-year-old man was charged on Friday, and this occurred on February 22nd, 2024. So a 26-year-old man was charged on Friday with kidnapping and murdering a nursing student whose body was found in a wooded area at the University of Georgia in Athens the previous day. They called the homicide the first in nearly 30 years on campus, a crime of opportunity, and said that the two apparently had not known each other. The victim, Laken Riley, 22, was an undergraduate student at the school until the spring of 2023, and then enrolled at Augusta University's nursing program, which has a campus in Athens, according to school officials. She was on Augusta University's fall 2023 Dean's List. University police identified the suspect as Jose Antonio Ibarra, 26, at an evening news conference. Calling it a heartbreaking time for the university, Jeffrey Clark, the chief of university police, said that video footage from our campus security cameras networks helped lead to the arrest. The charges against Mr. Ibarra include murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, kidnapping, hindering a 9/11 call, and concealing the death of another. He said that while Ibarra lives in Athens, he is not a citizen of the United States. Asked about the motive for the killing, Chief Clark said this was just a crime of opportunity. Later, he said this was an individual who woke up with bad intentions. When asked how Riley was killed, the chief said blunt force trauma. So just as bad as you could get. Blunt force trauma, she was hit over the head with a rock. That's right. And just, she fought for her life. That was evident. That was obvious. Thank God for things like video surveillance that led them right back to his residence, which was just off the running path. So maybe every day, and potentially I think that was part of their investigation, he was there just sort of reconning a victim, checking out the runners going by. And Laken Riley ran that same path every day. So like a lot of mopes, like this guy is, he was, checking out his victim and potentially paths of escape once he committed this heinous crime. So luckily in this case, and there's nothing lucky for the family of Laken Riley, is that they have tremendous amount of evidence. And we're talking about DNA evidence, blood evidence on his clothing, electronic evidence going on his phone. All of those things his attorneys tried to get suppressed, and the judge denied all of their legal requests in regards to suppressing evidence. The judge ruled that no, the evidence was collected legally and by the book, and that the evidence will go forward and it will not be suppressed. So to me, this is the same judge who's going to sit in judgment on Jose Antonio Ibarra. So a little bit to me strange as to why in this case they chose a judge trial rather than a jury. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, the defense attorney's between a rock and a hard place. They don't really have anywhere to go, especially when they lost the evidence suppression hearings and the judge said it's all coming in. The cops did the right thing according, they followed the rules and procedures and did everything by the book. I guess it's like, what do? You're going to be facing this judge alone who has already just slammed you with all of your pretrial, denied all your pretrial motions, or are you going to go with the jury? And I think the defense attorney is just, the defense attorney doesn't have a case. He doesn't have a good set of cards to play, but he's got to play the cards. And he's got this very unattractive defendant here there's no sort of, affirmative defense that they could say. There's no sort of extenuating circumstances that they could bring up. No, this is a vicious person. And I talk to my students about this criminal behavior all the time. When you get someone who is a career criminal, and I have no doubt Jose Ibarra is a career criminal. This isn't like his first time just attacking somebody out of clear blue. Those career criminals, they are hunters. They hunt, they watch. They're like when those nature shows, when you see a lion going after like a limping gazelle out near the water hole in some sort of African plain somewhere in the middle of the summertime. They watch, they wait, they look, they stalk, they make up their minds. They're very, very patient. This dirtbag has no place to go all day. He's not working. He's got nothing to do but sit around and watch and wait and pick somebody out and wait for the opportune time to attack this girl. Thankfully, she was able to fight him off, but he overpowered her and hit her head repeatedly with a rock and killed her, and then dragged her body off to try to hide it. I mean, this is animalistic behavior. He is a vicious hunter killer, and hopefully, he will get American justice at the end of this case.
Absolutely. This is from Crime Fix.
Executed a waiver and his right to a trial by jury, and the state has agreed to a bench trial so long as the trial remains before your honor and no senior judges are brought in. And I believe we're going to commence the trial very shortly, so I don't think that will happen. So both the state and the defense have agreed to proceed with a bench trial in this matter. I have prepared a waiver. I believe they have executed the waiver.
Judge Haggard then went over Ibarra's decision with him through an interpreter.
Do you have any questions about your decision to waive a jury trial in this case?
No questions.
And you had enough time to talk to your lawyers about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand that if I grant this request, it cannot be revoked by you going forward?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
That lady who appears to have I thought there was like an oxygen tank.
Right.
She's the interpreter, and when the judge speaks, she's speaking back to Mr. Ibarra in Spanish so that he can understand the proceedings. That's why you see him with the headphones on. He's not listening to a radio station. He's listening to the interpreter. I just wanted to let everyone know that's watching this. He's listening to the interpreter change what the judge says from English into Spanish.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Kirby, let me ask you on the record, have you had sufficient time to go over this waiver with your client?
I have, Judge.
And can you say collectively, you and the other defense counsel, are you all in agreement with your client's decision to make this election?
We are, Judge.
Phil Holloway is a former assistant district attorney in Cobb County, and he has been following the Laken Riley case very closely. So, Phil, I'm interested in your thoughts about why Jose Ibarra would opt for a bench trial rather than a trial by jury. This is going to be a judge who knows the law front and back, deciding his fate.
Yeah, great to be with you guys as always. Look, it's a very strange and bizarre decision that he made. I don't know why he made it, because honestly, I can't think of any tactical or strategic advantage. I have seen it in cases where maybe a prosecutor agrees to take maybe the death penalty off the table. And so you basically just have what's this it's like a slow plea of guilty or a bench trial so that everybody can just move on to the appeal. But in this case, the only shot that Ibarra would have had, in my view, was like a Hail Mary pass, hoping that maybe one juror might hang the jury in the event of an indecision, and they might have to do it again. But look, why give up your Hail Mary, your only shot? Why give that only shot up if you get nothing in exchange for it? So it's a very perplexing and bizarre decision. I don't really see much of an advantage, if any.
Mike, I was sort of perplexed by this too, and let's make it straight here. There's no way this knucklehead made this decision. This is a decision that his attorneys sold to him, and why they sold this to him, which is even more strange to me. Why they said, "Oh no, you need to take a judge trial, not a jury trial," that's beyond me, because there's no way he said, "Oh, I want a judge trial." No, his attorneys advised him of this, and again, that's to me a bit bizarre.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has a law degree. I don't think he's really fluent in the law. He's sitting there, and he's probably, he has some experience with Venezuelan courts, I'm sure, and I'm sure they're very, very different down there in their type of criminal procedure. But he doesn't really know what's going on. They're trying to tell him, look, and I'm thinking they're probably, telling him, you don't have a lot of good choices. You have several bad choices, some maybe worse than others, but you don't have anything good. And like the attorney said there, they giving up the Hail Mary, and that's a really good point. Maybe, with a bench trial, we've talked about this in the Koberger case and the Gilgo Beach case and other cases, whereby you may wish as a defense attorney to just hang up one juror and the judge would declare a mistrial. And then when they go back to do it all over again, you may hope that instead of doing a trial all over again for the top charge, the district attorney would kind of lower the charge and offer you a plea, something like that. So therefore, you could claim some sort of success. And so maybe, it seems strange to us, but I'm thinking that the defense attorney is local and knows what is going to happen, knows how the community feels, and probably doesn't believe that there's going to be a hung jury, and that most likely a jury would come back very quickly with a unanimous decision. So therefore, that's maybe why they decided to opt out of that possibility of a hung jury. But he has no good choices going forward. He's probably just, winging it. His attorneys are probably trying to explain to him. But hey, look, he had his hearing in court. It's done. It's irrevocable. That choice is now beyond any sort of appellate, appeals, grounds for appeal. And so therefore, he's going to live with the consequences of his actions. And that's a good thing. This trial will go and be completed very quickly. And for the parents of Laken Riley and her family and her community, they'll be able to start, in some ways, rebuilding after this trial is over.
Mike, one of the things that I also think of beyond, now we're at the stage where it's going to trial, is how did this affect the college community, the University of Georgia community, as we saw in the Brian Koberger, which yesterday was the 2-year anniversary of the murder of the Idaho 4 by, alleged killer Brian Koberger. And we know the scars that put on the University of Idaho. And just to this day, they still exist till that case goes to trial and is disposed of in some way. But when a violent crime like this happens on a college campus, right away people start looking at, well, where was campus security? How did they let this happen? And I'm sure the head of security at the University of Georgia is a highly competent, probably prior law enforcement individual that runs it. And they did all the things right. They had video surveillance. There was, proper lighting, and you can't protect every single area of a location. But having said that, that doesn't help the brand name of the university for future and current students. When a violent crime like that happens on a college campus, parents want answers. What the hell happened? The community wants answers. And this case, not unlike so many other cases, Rachel Marin, other murdered victims of illegals that came into this country, it becomes a national and an international story. And there are no good answers as to why. And as I stated earlier, many times the national media will use the excuse of, oh, illegals do crime at a much lower level than regular American citizens. And that just blows me away, that excuse. No, because they're not supposed to be here to begin with. So let's add that up to 100% more crimes because they're not supposed to be here. And they said on the ABC News report with George Stephanopoulos there that the New York City Police Department had no record of him being arrested. Where did that come from? That was reported immediately. The other thing is, to get us even more riled up, is New York City is a sanctuary city. So what does that mean? That means when someone's arrested, they don't call ICE. They don't call the Border Patrol. They don't call the immigration. They don't call the authorities because to them it's okay to it's okay to have it's a sanctuary city to have illegal people come into this country. So there are no answers. There are no good answers over it. But yet we want to know why. Why?
Billy, I'm thinking as you're talking about and what the denial by New York City, some spokesman for New York City, that he'd ever been arrested. And what I'm thinking of, he probably sounded like there was some sort of moving violations and he had some sort of like a reckless sort of conduct going on because he had a child in the car and he's unlicensed, unregistered, uninsured. I'm thinking probably back to what would happen in that kind of case back in the 1980s. He may have gotten a couple of moving violations, we call a couple of, B summonses, and he may have gotten a C summons perhaps for, some sort of other thing he did, and that he wasn't actually maybe put in handcuffs, fingerprinted photographs. He wasn't taken down to central booking. He might have just been held within a precinct. The summonses were written out and they probably let him go. So therefore, in a weird way, New York City could, in a way, say, look, he actually wasn't physically arrested. We don't have an arrest number associated with him, and that whatever was handled by the officer. And I think he might have gotten some summonses, so they can get out of that sort of predicament by saying, hey, our hands are clean. We didn't screw up. But that's not much comfort for the community. And I would imagine that poor Laken Riley's death, this is going to take a generation for people who to come along who've not heard of this case, or they may have heard it once or twice. And it's going to take a generation for that college to heal. And as far as that security apparatus there's a conflict of interest there because the security people, and I know this in my own college, the security people want to secure everything about the college campus because that's their job. That's what they're trained to do. That's what they want to do. They want to make it no crime is going to happen so long as you're on our campus. And that's a good thing, well-intentioned. But at the same time, there's that push and pull with other people on the college campus who want the college campus to be open to a lot of people. And they don't want guards go around checking IDs all the time and fences with, like some, circular barbed wire on it and, prison spotlights like you'd see in some sort of movie like Stalag 17, they don't want that. So what you get is a kind of mix and an acceptance of the fact that we take risks on college campuses as a society because we're trying to balance the needs of security with the needs of the people who want it to be a free and open place. And so, he didn't come onto this campus and enter this campus through the front gate. You know, he does what he knows to do. He hopped over a fence that's probably in a wooded area that may not have had a camera faced there to that spot. And what he did was he followed her, and he may have stalked her for maybe days or weeks before he made his move, and hunted her down and killed her. So, you know, there's no way, unless you make that a college campus akin to a, you know, maximum security institution, there's no way you could protect every single person on that college campus from every single crime, from everyone out there who would like to commit the crime 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sadly, you know, this is what we end up with.
Absolutely. Judy Moraes, and his punishment is to be deported. That is so cruel to Laken's. No, that's not Judy. He gets tried first. He gets convicted. Whatever his sentence is, he serves it in this country. At the completion of his sentence, he will be deported if he ever gets released. It depends what his punishment is. You know, this type of case has a real sort of soft spot with me, because a month before I came on the police department, I was held up at gunpoint. It's a long story with my brother and my roommate's wife. Anyway, we were shot at in an apartment at Stick Up, and my brother got hit in the stomach, and we disarmed the perp and held him for the police. And then he was he went on trial. He actually took a plea, and he served 24 years in state prison. But he was an illegal from the Dominican Republic. He served 24 years, and every 2 years when he came up for parole, I wrote a letter to the parole board keeping him in. It kept him in for 24 years. And I wasn't happy with that, because he was also out on parole for a murder before he committed our crime. And the week before he committed the crime against myself and my brother and my roommate's girlfriend, he did another stick up the week before. So I was like, this is a bad, bad, bad guy. He's not even supposed to be here. So at 24 years, he was actually in Sing Sing. He was getting out of prison. I called ICE. ICE was waiting for him. As soon as he stepped foot out of Sing Sing, slapped handcuffs on him, and they deported him right back to the Dominican Republic. That is the way the system is supposed to work. You know, totally. Anyway, folks, this is Police Off the Cuff. Real crime stories. You like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button right on the screen, that little red button. Give us a thumbs up, hit that like button. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. And you can be part of the Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories family. You know, I want to play this, Mike, because this is from Vinnie Politan. It sort of shows around where the crime was committed.
Now, we're here on UGA, beginning on their East Campus, here at this apartment complex. This is where Jose Ibarra, the alleged killer of Laken Riley, and his brother Diego live, both who are now in custody. And what I'm standing on right now is that popular cut-through. We've talked to some students since we've been out here. A popular cut-through down to the intramural fields. This paved path that they use as a shortcut to get down to the paths that circulate Lake Harriet. As we continue walking down, we've only seen a few, 2, maybe 3 runners come by, some people walking their dogs. But one thing to note when we get down here on this paved pathway, to my left right here, that's student housing. As you can see, there's a UGA bus right here, a campus bus dropping off kids, picking up kids. Security cameras, if you look closer. These are the only sets of security cameras we've seen since we've been here so far. Which means if you're out of that range, you're generally out here on your own. No matter if you have your location on your phone, no matter if people know where you are, that's the only range of security camera footage that they have, that we've seen thus far. As we continue on down, this pathway that Laken Riley took, you see we have a biker coming, somebody down there walking their dog. As we continue down, if you look this way towards the woods, that's where the paths and the wooded trails begin, here at the intramural fields around Lake Harriet. And if you look closer, you can see that is the path that she took on her final run that morning in February. Now, we've just come down that path, down from Jose Ibarra's apartments up toward the street. And as we stand here, one thing to note, there's no fence, there's no barrier, there's no wall between those apartments and these trails that lead to the intramural fields, which means anybody from the street can access these trails. As we come across this railroad track, we come down these stairs, coming down this popular cut through that students use to get to the trails around Lake Herrick. You can see on either side of me, the brush is very thick, it's a little shaded, and it's a little secluded. Ample opportunity for somebody to hide. Now we get on down the trail a little bit more, and we see that it diverges off in 3 different directions. Now, as we were walking out here a little bit before, we saw 1, maybe 2 runners going from this direction down to that direction, which led us to believe this is the path that Laken Riley took down to the pond. And again, as we continue down this trail, very secluded, lots of woods, lots of brush, very dense brush. It would be hard to imagine somebody crawling in there and trying to catch somebody by the element of surprise, but we never know until more information comes out. Now we continue down. It's a little rough, a little edgy down here. Maybe 1 or 2 runners we saw before, but this is the trail that people walk their dogs on, students jog on, that lead down to the pond here on Lake Herrick. So we just left that long stretch of land around the trail over there, maybe a quarter mile long, little less than that. Somewhere along this path is where Laken Riley was brutally attacked by Jose Ibarra. His apartments are right up there. Now, as I come around this corner and get to this spot right here, it starts to look pretty open. You know, there's trees, there's brush, but as I pan from left to right, it seems as if you would be able to see if somebody was out of place, if something was out of the ordinary. Now, something to note, this is supposedly supposed to be a popular trail by students to run here, but we've been here maybe an hour and a half now. We've only seen 3, 4, maybe 5 people tops. And one last thing to note, there's no security cameras. There's a light post over there, power lines, but no security cameras. So even if you do have your location on, if your friends to track or your family to track, they know you're out here on a run, it's still up to you for your own protection. Now, ultimately, to my left is where Laken Riley's body was found. Right here, this is the wooded area that the police reports talk about. This is the gravel spill where all the police tape was roping everything off. There's still remnants of it here. And as you come over here to this rock, you can see some type of vigil, some type of memorial, a couple of flowers, and a smiley face painted here, probably by friends, family, even community members, honoring the loss of life of Laken Riley.
You know, so that really gave you a sort of almost a spooky feeling of the jogging path, you know, and look, colleges can't, that seems to me is probably private property. They can't, I guess, slap cameras up everywhere. I mean, they could, but costs a lot of money, obviously, to do that. And then someone has to monitor those cameras. In New York City, Columbia University has one of the best surveillance camera systems probably anywhere in the world on a college campus. And it surrounds their entire campus. And it was a lot of the camera system in New York City, not just on Columbia University, has been modeled after London's The Ring of Steel, they called it. And this became very popular after 9/11. But again, civil libertarians have fought against these cameras, but they become very important in the event of a horrific crime like this. The cameras led right back to Jose Ibarra's apartment, and it enabled the police to make a very quick arrest. Civil libertarians argue that cameras are a violation of people's rights, but they sure as hell come in handy in the solving of horrific crimes like this, and even more so in, you know, anti-terrorism and in subways and transportation hubs. They're invaluable. Who knows how quickly Jose Ibarra would have been arrested had it not been for these surveillance cameras. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, that's the balance. Is people want to feel free. They want their privacy. They don't want to feel like they're being surveilled. Now, that college could figure out the exact line that they own, that state property, and that private condo complex where their line is and start putting up cameras, it would cost a huge amount of money. You'd have to have more security because you have to not only have to have the camera, but you have to have somebody monitoring that camera, and you have to. So it's going to be a more expensive proposition. But after the death of Laken Riley, people are like, come on, it's worth it. It's worth the money. And these things, especially on state university, it's going to take a while because you got to go through the whole entire state contract process. But I understand the civil libertarian idea, but as a former law enforcement officer, I do like the fact that there is technology that we can use to make everyone safe. And let's face it, when you're a young kid and you're enjoying life and you're on a college campus, you're used to the freedom, you're used to the privacy, you're used to the friendliness of your compatriots on campus. You get very, very trusting of other people. You've got a great experience. You don't think that anything's going to happen to you because you're on this beautiful college campus. But violence can visit upon someone, at like lightning and strike whenever you least expect it. But that's the tension: is what's the tipping point where you feel like you have enough security, but you also have enough privacy for people. And there's no way everybody's going to agree on what's the best way to go forward or what's the best answer to get to. But sadly, all of this would just be an academic talk and a theoretical talk. But Jose Ibarra and what he has done, he makes this now a real, goes from theoretical to practical, because there are many other people like Jose Ibarra, citizen and non-citizen alike, that we need to be protected from.
100%, Mike. One of the things that I had suggested, and in no way at all am I victim blaming in this beautiful girl, Laken Riley. But you might think of, if you are a jogger, not to jog alone. And, it's just a suggestion. But believe me, I've watched criminals for long periods of time. I did 6.5 years in plain clothes. And I could get into their brain and watch their eyes and watch their head and watch their movement and look at their thought process of why someone was a victim and then why they decided to back off and not target that person. So one of the things is strength in numbers. One person is easy. Two people are much harder. 3 even better. The other thing is joggers seem to have a habit these days, and to me, this is outrageous. And this is part of our job here, is doing this show to give you safety, little safety tips. Do not wear earbuds when you're jogging or headphones. You cannot hear what's around you. And you need all your senses when you're jogging to be safe. You need to have your eyes, your ears, and it's just a dangerous thing not to be able to hear what's around you. So those are two little suggestions. A, don't jog alone. B, jog where there's a lot of other people. And you heard the report from Vinnie Politan's channel that while he was out there checking the jogging path, very few people walked by. So even though it's a jogging path at the University of Georgia that many people use, there are times when there's not strength in numbers out on that jogging path. And that's one of the things you have to think of, your own personal safety. And you may want to, if you're a jogger, you may want to carry mace with you or some type of weapon. Believe me, if she would have had mace, just gave him a nice spray to his nose, it's like he would have ran for the hedges, And you hate to have to think like that, but this is the world we live in, and you need to be safe and you need to protect yourself. And those are some of the ways you can. Again, my biggest suggestion is, if you're a jogger, do not jog alone. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, those are the practical applications of safety principles. Having some sort of countermeasure, like a pepper spray, which does, when I've done that for my daughters, and I even carry it sometimes when I go into the city, just because I just want to have something just in case. You never know. And if everything goes fine, everybody's good. But when I'm on the subway, on the train, walking around, I want to have a little something extra. But always have my head on a swivel. But yeah, having something in your ear, like an earbud, and you're just sitting there grooving to the music, and you're just in some sort of euphoric state, and you've done this sort of jog many, many times. You're taking everything for granted. You don't know who's coming up behind you. You don't know, you may get like sort of like myopia. You're not even paying attention to what's going on the sides. And because you've done it so many times and it's been so pleasurable, it's always been so fun, it's always been so safe. But those little tidbits of information, that safety tips, can save your life, can save the life of a loved one. So those are very, very important for people. And it's difficult, but to be able to, and you hate to think that way, that that there are people out there who would actually want to hurt you. But as a cop and as a parent, and same here with me, you got to think practical. It's not theoretical, it's practical. And you got to think what could happen. And I always talk to my students about this and we talk about like privacy versus security, and I said, when you're going somewhere and you're thinking about crowds, always think, how would a criminal think? Always take the footsteps, stand in their footsteps and think, what is a way to hurt somebody here? And then therefore you have an answer to what not to do. And so, yeah, this is huge, because people, they feel so safe in their communities, and yet just one time it could destroy someone's life.
Absolutely. Miss Holmes, 66 from the chat. Police off the cuff, is pepper spray and/or mace illegal in some states? I know in New York, it's what's called an administrative code violation. So the possession of. So if you were in possession of it, it's like getting a traffic citation. So you use your own thoughts. Is it worth having this peace of mind by having this in my pocketbook or in my pocket, that if I got caught, what I could get us? Yeah, I think it is. I think it could save your life, and or save you being assaulted. If you ever saw someone take a face full of mace, it's I've never seen someone that could. Although I did see an EDP one time, he just went like this. I couldn't believe it. I felt it from 12 feet away. I was like, I felt that
smell.
I have asthma too. I felt the hit of that pepper spray. This guy just wiped it off his face like it was, like he was sprayed with water. And I was like, wow, that's he's in a different zone than me, because I could feel it from 12 feet away. It's Pauline Buckles. It was, then I heard about the human incident where the girl was on her bike. Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen so many of these things before, I mean, look, even we as cops, New York City was once a way more dangerous place than it is right now. And I would go down the subway and I would take my gun and put it in my pocket just so I had ready access, because I frequently, earlier in my career, carried it on my ankle, which is a really bad place to carry it. It's the most concealable place to put it, because no one can ever tell you have a gun. But to get access to it, very difficult. It's just if you need immediate access to keep it on your ankle. So I stopped doing that after a while. And you always want to have it on your hip, on your strong hand side. How many times we were preached that by the range? Your strong arm, keep it in your strong arm side, which is I'm righty. It would be on my right hip and attached to your belt, so that you never lose it. But these are just things that common sense. And that's why these kind of cases just really, really break my heart, because was there really a failure in security? Not really. You saw those jogging paths. You think the University of Georgia is going to have officers, stationed by those jogging paths? The best thing that they could do is to, again, have cameras. Cost a lot of money. Yeah, but something, maybe it's worth the investment. Maybe in honor of Laken Riley, in honor of her memory, they, collect private funds to fund cameras along those jogging paths that might be a good idea. And just that, these things have happened in other parts of this country too. We mentioned some of the other folks that lost their lives to illegals being allowed into this country. And again, as a lot of news reporters say, they don't do crime at any higher level than American citizens. Yes, but they're not supposed to be here. They're not here legally. So they do crimes at 100% higher for illegal aliens, And, we use euphemisms for this. Migrants. No, that's not who they are. They're illegal aliens. They're not supposed to be here. They're not migrants. They're illegals, So, this case is really, to me, again, maybe I'm beating a dead horse, but it's really painful. It's really just, it'll never go away. And you think of this girl and her family, Laken Riley. When you do everything right in life, bad things aren't supposed to happen to you, But I think they still can, and they still do, And we just have to remember her memory, and got to also remember, and if you have kids, teach your kids, there's bad people in this world, and you have to be prepared when you meet them, So it's like that reminded me of a term my son used to have in his wrestling. They used to say, the people that train really hard, that do everything right in life, when you meet them, they will defeat you. So become like that, so that you are the one that is always prepared, and not the slacker in life, not the person that's taking shortcuts. Anyway, I just sort of used a wrestling analogy, and I don't know if it really has anything to do with this. But so to recap, Tom Miller, Athens, Georgia is a sanctuary city and is extremely liberal. The judge is probably very liberal because the condition to a bench trial is that judge will preside, expect a lighter sentence. Tom, except you potentially could be right, but Tom, realize that the judge was asked to rule on a couple of issues, and some of the issues was the defense wanted certain evidence suppressed, and he ruled against them in both of the requests. So he may be politically to the left, but he still has to abide by the law. And he has so far in the ruling on at least two pieces of evidence. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, he's probably a very fair judge, and we'll give him that. He hasn't expressed anything that we know that would show favoritism towards the defense. We do expect our judges to be, very conservative when it comes to the interpretations of the law, to let the appellate judges at the state level maybe make more, different types of interpretations of the law, but it may be more expansive. But usually trial judges tend to read the law very conservatively and apply the evidentiary laws, pretty much by the letter of the law. So I'm pretty, satisfied that this judge has got it all in hand. He's the district attorney, as we saw in the video. She stood up and she said, we will agree to this, having a bench trial. We won't make any arguments against it, so long as you, Your Honor, will actually do the bench trial. So I feel very confident that the district attorney, I'm going to take her judgment on this one and say that she's very, very confident that this judge is going to be very fair and not bend over backwards to try to twist the law into a pretzel to find do some sort of favorable decision for Ibarra. I think if the DA is happy with what's going on, then I think I'm happy with what's going on. So we just keep our fingers crossed.
Absolutely. I want to play this from a local channel 11, and this will this little tidbit.
So what are we learning?
Well, we know that hearing is set to begin at 10 a.m. this morning in Athens and follows a lot of back and forth lately between the prosecution and the defense over what evidence exactly the jury should be able to hear. Now, as a reminder, a judge ruled on Friday denying 3 motions by the defense to suppress some of the DNA evidence, which included cell phone data, DNA from Riley's fingernails, and fingerprints found on her phone. During a previous hearing, both sides made their case, with prosecutors questioning an FBI agent and then defending how that evidence was collected, while Ibarra's team pushed back.
And in searching 1B7 and 1B8, did you stay within the confines of the scopes of those warrants?
Yes. There is no limitation as to the data the state could have seized based on their interpretation of the warrant they got. And so for that reason, Your Honor, we ask that Your Honor grant our motion to suppress, or at the very least, limit the data that the state can use at trial to the data time range authorized by the warrant.
Again, the defense's motion and that request was denied. The judge ultimately deciding that DNA evidence should indeed be allowed. Now, the defense's request to move the trial out of Athens was also previously denied. Following the hearing today, as you mentioned from the top, we also expect jury selection to begin Wednesday, and then the trial looms with the expectation it will start next week. We'll, of course, keep you updated on the very latest from court as that hearing gets underway.
So we know, in fact, this was an older little news blip, that there will be no jury trial. There'll be a judge trial. One of the things that amazes me is that here's a girl jogging, fighting for her life when she's attacked. She gets the skin of this savage underneath her fingernails, which is, to me, smoking gun evidence against him. His DNA underneath her fingernails. Oh, gee, how did that happen? How could a judge throw something like that and the defense asked for it to be thrown out? Are you kidding me? What judge, I don't care who he is, could throw out that type of evidence, Mike?
Yeah, it's like we've seen this in other cases, like the Koberger case too. The defense attorneys their ethical duty is to zealously advocate for their client. So they'll try everything that they possibly can. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Maybe one piece will stick, maybe, and they'll think that's a victory for their side. But people can't get mad at them and don't hate on them for doing this. It sounds silly, is from your perspective, my perspective, or prosecutor's perspective, but they have to check off the boxes. They have to make these motions. They always, always, always have to try to suppress the evidence if they want to do their ethical duty, their ethical obligation in this case. So they know that there's a really zero chance that this is going to happen, that the evidence is going to be suppressed, especially, they're okay. You could talk about the limitations on the search of the cell phone. Okay, you could talk about that, and we could argue about what the limit means, how far they can go in searching the cell phone. But when you have, fingernail DNA, DNA of his underneath the victim's fingernails, and that was gathered at the morgue during the autopsy by the ME personnel, there's no search and seizure issues for the defendant to argue, because their rights weren't violated. They can't complain that their rights weren't violated. They're just grasping at straws. They're doing the best they can, but in the end, they know it's not going to be successful. They're trying, but just try to understand that's their job. As weird as it is, that's their job.
Mike, you said don't hate on them. I won't hate. I'll just dislike on them.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Oh, yeah. It's okay. That's okay.
So, this case, as I said, it gets emotional for me. Having been a victim of something like this many, many years ago. It was 1984, a month before I came on the police department. Anyway, I told the story before. I'm not going to retell it. But it's totally preventable. Totally preventable. Because this guy and his brother, this dopey brother, he doesn't belong in this country. He's not supposed to be here, but we let him in. Why? I don't know. So this guy took her life. Does that seem like a good trade-off? This Venezuelan gangbanger took this young nursing student's life, and I don't find it a fair trade-off. or a trade-off that should ever happen again. But guess what? It's too late. Mike, your final thoughts.
I'd just like to say to the people who are, watching in the chat and do reviews of our cases, just have faith that the American criminal justice system will actually give justice to both Ibarra, the state, and the victim's family. For everyone will get justice, and hopefully that justice will be swift and certain. And just keep the faith.
Absolutely. And folks, always, when you think of this case, remember this pretty young girl, Laken Riley, who was murdered on the campus of the University of Georgia. Remember her family. And remember, our justice system and the fact that someone like this gets all the rights afforded an American citizen. And it almost, and I'm not going to say it's unfair, it almost seems unfair to me. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I didn't think we were going to recover this case. This case, again, starts tomorrow, Friday, November 15th, and the case will be decided by a judge. So, folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. On behalf of myself and Professor Mike Geary, thank you for tuning in today. Have a great day and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.